Richard Burton once said, "Show a Welshman a million exits and he will choose the one marked self-destruction." Nobody quite seems sure when or where he said this, but it's a cool as line, the type of which always makes me think that Wales really should be much more famous than it is.
Right, boy!
Which also kind of touches on the frustrating matter of the demons plaguing the Welsh psyche, which often sees us with things like dissociative personality or substance abuse disorders. Check and check. And it kind of applies to this film too, Mr. Burton. A well-directed, classy, relatable story performed by a superb cast who, for once, never have us in any doubt that they are inhabitants of a real South Welsh story setting. There's not a dodgy accent to be found anywhere, folks. The issue is that as far as I can see, no bugger wants to watch this film, which is reflected by its absence from all the mainstream cinemas and a familiar lack of confidence in Welsh film agencies promoting and marketing their products. I saw this on opening weekend in Port Talbot, the Welsh coastal town which is home to not only Michael Sheen, Anthony Hopkins and a f***ing Banksy, but the actual location where most of the film's events took place. Despite that, and despite it being opening weekend, there were just 29 people in the real cinema theatre in Port Talbot. Yes, I counted. It's kind of my remit. Maybe it's the fact that Burton has been dead for 40 years, but fundamentally, a film which stars a couple of old English thespians about a relationship between a school teacher and the son of a Welsh miner is a pretty tough sell no matter who it is, especially to mass audiences. But regardless of that, I could just never see a movie about, say, Michael Caine or Sean Connery getting such little hype, especially in the localities and locations which spawned them. Why do Film Cymru et al. Make so many films that just nobody wants to watch? It's a shame because Mr. Burton has so many pleasing aspects. The story beats are all familiar to anyone who's seen a white saviour or a mentor film. Everything from The Corn is Green through to Educating Rita, Dangerous Minds, Finding Forrester, etc., yawn yawn. It's a well-worn trope. But one of my personal gripes with Welsh films is how often they just refuse to play by the rules and choose a clear genre convention and tone. And now that it's happening, it's hard to moan about it, but I will. You know, a million exits and all that. Mr. Burton, the film, just needs to be a bit more challenging in places. A bit of subversion needed here or there, perhaps. The last quality film that Film Cymru pushed out, which also nobody wanted to watch, was an example of dropping the reverence and portent for cherished historical characters and told an important Welsh story in a subversive and fun way. On that topic, how does Mr. Burton show Wales off? Well, when the words England and Great Britain appeared in the movie's introduction, my hopes weren't high. But other than that, I'd say it gets it pretty right. There's no nationalism here, just a few droplets of culture, such as the clear bilingualism of time and place. But this is only a story about Wales deep in the subtext. It's more an exploration of abandoned dreams and dreams of abandonment, if you want to be clever about it. The old Welsh trope of the absent or abusive parent embodied perfectly by Steffan Rodri as a boozy, selfish father, Dick Jenkins. Visually, I feel it gets it just about right. The CGI backdrops are a little too cartoony in places, but nothing which compromises your immersion. In fact, seeing how 21st century valley towns can be altered back to previous idealised industrial states made me yearn for some modern takes on the mining films of yesteryear. There are a couple of heavy unsubtleties in the storytelling. Number one, it's Burton's burgeoning alcoholism.
I drank a great deal. I'm as famous for my drinking. Famous I was among the bars. I could drink anybody under the table.
It's less hinted at and more just constantly prodding you the more the film drags on. And it does drag in places. The middle act is not the quickest moving movie you'll ever see. The seeds of the abuse disorder are first sown in the movie's really delightful opening 20 minutes, as subtle looks here and there between Richard and his father, or maybe Richard and his adopted father, who's played fantastically, subtly, and really tastefully by Toby Jones. By the time the third act is upon us, some viewers might feel slightly patronised by the message. You know, we get it. Burton turned out to be an alcoholic. Connected to this, the booze issue also made compromise the feel-good nature of the finale, making the tone a little hard to get a handle of. Are we watching a man triumph over his demons, or totally succumb to them? It's not really clear. What we're watching is the actor's burst into stardom, but also the inexorable clash with his demons, which will see the guy dead before 60. Burton's transformation from the innocent squeaky taff you see here, for example.
Excuse me. I have never spoke to you. I have never spoken to you. But I have seen you many a time.
Into the mellifluous baritone Lothario happens just a bit too quick, and for some, this may compromise Harry Laughton's superb performance. This guy nails it. Honestly, I've read most of Burton's biographies and I've watched most of his movies, and this lad, he just is Burton for me. Concerns about Anglo-washing? Not relevant. Toby Jones, superb, perfect casting. Leslie Manville can do this in her sleep. And Irene Barnard lays it on a little bit thick, but along with Stefan Rodri, I think both are pretty believable and do the movie no disservice whatsoever. Amy Fionn Edwards is perhaps a little underwritten as Richard's sister Sis, who we know was a huge motivating factor in his life and his thirst for success and riches. The other big problem is the music. Oh my god. John Hardy's an excellent composer, but it really is annoyingly intrusive in the edit. There's just so much of it, and it's put so clunkily into some of the sequences. We can't have basic scenes of Jones and Laughton even knocking on a Taibach front door entrance without loud piano or violin overlay, and I do mean overlay. This is less of a score and more of a blanket. There's one particular touching scene with both leads, in fact, dressed in their pyjamas, when Laughton is totally selling the beginning of an iconic transformation, but rather than let the actors' performances breathe, we get this stifling music, which frankly is not reading the room. There may be only 2 or 3 scenes which are not affected by a similar musical problem. It's just a bonkers decision. Other than that, what I'm going to ask you is to go and watch Mr. Burton, and also in the comments down below, let us know. This is important. What media or promotion have you seen about it where you live, whether that's USA, Australia, anywhere in the UK or further afield? Despite its frustrating musical score, this film does deserve to be seen, and I'm curious as to why more budget and time hasn't gone into some decent hype and promotion about it. So go and see Mr. Burton and let's get a conversation going. This is Wales in the Movies. Ta-da.
Love the Welsh with a passion that's almost idolatrous, particularly the South Welsh, the people I know best, and particularly the mining class.